Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where journalist Tony Ortega, as you can see, he is joining me back this week, and I go over the weekly events in Scientology as reported on Tony's Substack. Hey, Tony, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. I had a little family vacation. I'm glad to see that you and Alex got together while I was having fun with the family. So, but I'm back. I'm back in the saddle.
Yay! And we are happy. Yeah, it's been an eventful couple weeks and a lot going down in Scientology land. So let's talk about that. First off, and the big news, Ideal Org openings. Okay, so Austin, now Mexico City has just opened. Chicago's happening and Paris. And this is what we know about. What's the skinny here?
Well, you know, I am seeing people on social media seem bewildered. Why is Scientology opening these things? Why now? Why in those cities? And, you know, those of us that have been following the Ideal Org program have known this is going to be happening for a long time. The basic thing that people should understand is that the Ideal Org program has been going on for more than 20 years now. And it's basically David Miscavige's attempt to replace every normal org in a major city with something bigger, more expensive, more impressive. And it costs Scientologists an amazing amount of money. Paul Burkhart, he actually worked in that division and said on Leah and Mike's show that each Ideal Org costs about $25 million to do. And you know, they've completed 64 of them, but then everything came to a halt because of the pandemic. And so for a few years now, a few Ideal Orgs that were ready to go in Chicago, Austin, Mexico City, which is getting its second, and Paris have been sitting there waiting for when is Dave going to open them. And that's the key. Why now? Because Dave has a spot on his schedule. Dave has decided, now I'm going to have a big event there. And why he's doing it is he's got to convince the wealthy donors that Scientology is still alive. They don't have any real expansion. They don't have growing membership. All they can do is replace existing orgs with something more expensive and claim that that's expansion. It isn't. You're just replacing one building with another. That doesn't expand anything.
But there's so many more square feet, Tony. There's so many more square feet.
Well, the other thing he tells them is if you do this, then it will create this incredible demand and the field will expand. And we've seen the videos over the years. He shows these videos showing all the expansion that's going to happen. But it just doesn't happen. If you look at the places that have opened in the past and, you know, Portland and Seattle and you know, everywhere, Miami,
Vegas.
After a busy first year, they're just dead.
That's right.
But they're on his schedule. He's finally decided to go open them. And, of course, now he's trying to make a big show by doing it all at once. So Austin last week, Mexico City Friday night, Chicago today. We're recording this on Sunday. And Paris soon. We don't know exactly when. He had promised Paris first. But what's interesting to me is, you know, they've really had to amp up all of the sort of like they put up barriers so people can't see anything going on. They never invite local reporters. You know, it's very much all Dave wants to do is assemble a couple hundred Scientologists, get some cameras, get out there and say some things like this is the greatest thing ever, film it, because really what he's trying to do is convince the rest of the world of Scientologists that, look, see, we're doing great. It's really not about those local people. So if you live in Chicago and you're wondering, oh no, Scientology is doing something here, they really aren't. It's a show for the rest of the world of Scientology. And it's, you know, it's very quick. Dave just gives a few words. But to me, what's really interesting is who do they convince to show up and give speeches?
Yeah.
And, you know, they've managed some big names in the past. You know, when they did the New York Ideal Org, they actually got Congressman Rangel up there. When they did the Sacramento Ideal Org, they actually got Mayor Kevin Johnson, the famous NBA player. I mean, they have managed to get some names, but it's really a struggle now. So, for example, in Austin, None of the four were past elected officials or anything.
Yep.
The saddest thing was at the Austin org to see that the local NAACP leader had showed up to talk about what a great guy L. Ron Hubbard is. And it's just so sad because, of course, Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, was a big apartheid supporter.
Yeah.
And he actually said things like that black South Africans were too stupid to audit. So it's just really sad to see an NAACP person go up and shill for Scientology like that.
Yeah.
But, Scientology puts it out on their own press releases. So I grabbed those, and I want people to see who speaks for them. Mexico, in Mexico City, was getting its second ideal org. And they're also supposed to get an advanced org, but that's not really going. The construction doesn't seem to be going. But this is their second ideal org. They managed to attract a member of the Mexican Congress. They got a Mexican congressman there to talk about freedom. And, I mean, come on, Chris.
I know.
It's and somebody asked me, why would Mexico City get a second one? Well, Mexico City is one of the largest cities in the world.
Yep.
And if you remember a few years ago, I put together, when the pandemic hit, they asked Scientologists to send in videos of themselves stuck at home, talking about what they were doing in Scientology while they were locked down. And what was interesting to me was they came from people all over the world, but they didn't give too much about who they were, but they gave their location. So I mapped it. And what was really surprising was, of course, there's lots of videos from places you expect, St. Hill, Los Angeles, Clearwater. But the two that were really huge were Mexico and Taiwan. So it suggested that while Scientology, no question, has shrunk around the world, maybe the two places that have resisted that are Mexico and Taiwan. Maybe Scientology's been able to, I don't know about grow, but at least stem the, bleeding there.
It's a good point. And that number thing, I remember now, the video count you did a couple of years ago, you're absolutely right. And I had forgotten about that because I had said in a video the other day that this was not like Mexico City's doors are busting down with demand for Scientology, and so they had to open another ideal org. I'll still stick with that because we know Scientology isn't growing at that rate anywhere. But it is interesting that there is more support coming out of that region. And we have very little on the ground reporting or information coming out of that area, right? Out of Mexico City. I have one guy who contacts me from time to time and says basically that there's a lot of government infiltration and corruption that they're involved in down there. But that's about as much as I know. So,
I mean, it would probably be the case that there are some big donors and that you have an existing ideal org. There are some donors who are willing to donate some money and say, hey, let's get a second one going. I'm sure it's got nothing to do with the fact that, hey, we've got so many new people. We gotta have two different places to come in. It's probably not the case.
Yeah.
But like with Orange County, for example, Ned McCrank, he was one of the main people behind that. He was the first $1 million donor to the Orange County org. And you needed people like that to get it going, to get the money. And then, of course, Ned was saying that, after the Orange County ideal org had opened, about a year later, he went in to take a course, and he was absolutely shocked to see there were 3 people on course.
Exactly.
And when he brought it up, they barred him from it. They barred him from the building he had paid for.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think he ever got over it. He took his own life a couple of years ago. It's really sad. But that was one thing he kept talking about, was he just was so, he felt so betrayed about all that.
Exactly. The betrayal was deep. And that is so the case with every other ideal org that we have direct eyewitness testimony to from people who have been former whales even. Ned is one. There are stories out of all of these orgs. I think about Twin Cities right now. This 90,000 square foot glass bowl, this fish bowl that nothing's happening in, these kind of things. All right. Well, That's our ideal org update, and that is some of the big news. Now, one other thing that that we're probably going to hear more about, which I'll just bring up here, is the executive trainees coming back. And I believe that has something to do with these openings as well. But I absolutely agree with you that it is only a matter of convenience for Miscavige that we're seeing all these dominoes fall all at the same time. I think both things are true. And these executive trainees...
Mike Rinder suggested part of the timing may be that he has finally accepted service in a couple of lawsuits.
That's right.
And so he doesn't have so much pressure with process servers. That may be part of it. But I think these were in the planning stages for some time.
Yep.
Yeah, the idea that they've got these staffers coming back after all this flag training. I mean, there's always something Miscavige is saying to try to convince them that, okay, this next set of ideal orgs, these will work. Because look, they've been opening these things since 2003. More than 20 years. None of them have created the effect that he claims. Oh, well, yeah, but we have better admin training now. Now it'll bring in the crowds. I mean, it's just such a joke.
It unfortunately is such a joke, and such an expensive one, not only with money, but time. And unfortunately, with what we've been hearing about with these trainees, even elder abuse with these people being kept up all night, etc., some of them quite older people. So I'm sure, again, that we will have a lot more on that after these guys all fire back and we start hearing more about that. But it's interesting to me only from the point of view of looking at Miscavige as a true believer, if he is, that I think he thinks, oh, now's the time. Now's the time. I'm going to bring these executives back and we're going to have that missing component and it's all going to blow open and it's going to be just another round of disaster because he doesn't know what he's doing. So anyway,
I mean, that's one of the number one questions I get is like L. Ron Hubbard. Was he a con man or did he believe this stuff? And I really think it's a combination.
That's right.
That both Hubbard and Miscavige are, if there's anybody that knows the real situation, that knows the real numbers, that knows the real dwindling membership, it's David Miscavige.
Yeah.
So, you might be right that he may personally believe in the tech and think, oh, now we've got the right combination, but he knows the real situation. Yeah. So it's kind of a combination of both the con man that kind of believes his own con, which I think was definitely the case with L. Ron Hubbard, and I think is also the case with David Miscavige.
Agreed. All right, moving on. You had a very interesting story that you posted a few days ago that I wanted to hear your take on it, and this was Priscilla Presley and the fact that she was seen at a public event with Scientologist Gottfried Helnwein, who's an artist of some kind, German artist. Right. Yeah. What was the story here? Austrian. Okay.
Yeah, so I actually got to write about Priscilla for the Daily Beast a week earlier. She's being sued by Priscilla Presley, the company, and it was an interesting story about a woman that had gone to work for her and was really trying to help her out, then kind of got thrown to the curb right as things started to turn around for Priscilla. Really interesting lawsuit, just quoted from the lawsuit, did that for the Daily Beast, had nothing to do with Scientology. But of course, whenever I write about Priscilla, people ask me, is she in or is she out?
Right.
And then I got this email from Peter Reichel, and Peter really knows Gottfried Helnwein. Peter has been writing about him for a long time, did documentaries. Gottfried Helnwein is this Austrian artist that Americans are probably, he does this hyper-realistic painting art, and Americans would most know him for rock album covers. So
didn't he do like Scorpion albums?
Scorpion's album cover. Yeah. There's various that you would recognize if you saw. Very successful Austrian artist, lives in a castle in Ireland. And longtime Scientologist. I mean, Peter tells me the guy actually created the Vienna Celebrity Center in the 70s.
Wow.
But he's very he denies it. Whenever the press asks him about being Scientologist, he denies it, and he's even sued people in court for saying he's a Scientologist. But there's just no question. At one point, we actually when there was an L. Ron Hubbard birthday party, I want to say 2018 or 2019, and they put these pictures of the giant crowds on on Scientology's website, and you can actually blow them up. And he's sitting right there in the front row. I mean, why would Gottfried Helmwein be in the front row of the L. Ron Hubbard birthday celebration in Clearwater, Florida? If he was, he's a big time Scientologist, whatever he says. Anyway. Yeah.
If it was in Florida, he's not even being let in that building if he's not a high-level Scientologist. You're right. The fact that he was even in the room, front row, is proof positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So he and Priscilla go way back. Peter reminded me that like back in like 2006 or something, Lisa Marie and Priscilla made news because they stayed at his castle for New Year's Eve or something like that. It was reported on at the time. But then, in 2014, by 2014, Lisa Marie had it, and she tried to have this showdown with Dave at Flag Land Base, which I've written about numerous times. Yep. And then a few months later, in 2015, she called me up. We talked about it. We had these long conversations about Lisa and Scientology and Michael Jackson and David Miscavige. Amazing stuff. And then sadly she died last year. And I wrote about these conversations I had with her. Well, one of the things that she told me in 2015 was that when she left, she told her mother Priscilla and her daughter Riley Keough, "You're coming out with me. I need you to watch my back." And I told Mike Rinder about that, and Mike said that is true because right after they tried that showdown with Miscavige in October 2014, Lisa and Riley went up to Nashville to a house they were renting, and Mike talked to Lisa on the phone. And Mike said, at that point, Lisa said, "Here, Riley wants to say something to you." And he said, "Tony, I had never talked to Riley Keough in my life. I didn't know who she was." Lisa hands the phone to Riley. Riley gets on it and says to Mike, this is what Mike told me, the exact words were, "You need to take these motherfuckers down."
Wow.
So no question, late 2014, early 2015, Lisa was out. She was telling me she had taken Priscilla and Riley out with her. Well, the next few years were really rough for her. I mean, she was in a big breakup with Michael Lockwood, and they had this huge, nasty, awful custody fight. She reportedly had some substance abuse problems again. And the first thing I noticed was in 2019, Riley was starting to show up on Instagram hanging out with Scientologist friends. And, celebrities can break the rules, but it just was like, I wonder if Riley slid back in. And then Priscilla actually had her representative, I think in 2017, tell People Magazine, no, it's wrong. She is definitely still in Scientology. So really unsure what to think of it. Lisa wasn't talking to me at that point. I didn't know what to think. So now, February 7th, I think, Priscilla goes over to Austria to visit Gottfried Helmwein at his big exhibit at the Albertina Museum. And Peter emailed me and said, "Tony, this is proof Priscilla is still in."
Yep.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm not 100% sure, Chris. I mean, I think the people at my website seem to think it's good proof. Celebrities can break the rules. I know that Peter's point of view is that Helmwein would never be seen with an SP like that. I don't know. If they're old friends, I think it's possible that he could be hanging out with her even if she'd left. So I'm still not 100% sure, to tell you the truth. All I know is Lisa told me in 2015 she was out and she took Priscilla with her. Yeah. And now Priscilla's hanging out with Gottfried Helmwein, and I'm not 100% sure what to think.
It is a mystery, and you're absolutely right, because where my mind goes is, 10, 20 years ago, I would have been a lot more sure and a lot more absolute about no goddamn way is that even possible. But now, and the reason that the thing that comes to my mind is when I saw Nicole Kidman, and I can't believe I'm forgetting her name right now, Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, Elizabeth Moss?
Elizabeth Moss, in a production together, well after Nicole was absolutely persona non grata, right? This is just a couple of years ago. And they were in a film together, right? And you go, okay, How is that possible? Well, 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been. I'm just saying. But now, who knows, right?
Another piece of tantalizing evidence, though, and this may push you over the edge, is somebody pointed out to me that there was when they made the movie Priscilla, Sofia Coppola made this movie about Priscilla Presley, came out last fall.
Yeah.
And apparently there was some behind the scenes stuff that they filmed with Priscilla. She was wearing a Scientology pendant.
Oh, well, okay.
Scientology cross.
Nah. So, Yeah, Priscilla slipped back in. Now, would this be the first time that a celebrity or, has left and got pulled back in? No. John Travolta in the 80s, Tom Cruise in the 90s. Happened. Both times. I know that for a fact.
That's a good point. Right.
So, it's not that all Scientologists are really bad at their jobs. and celebrities are people too. And they have just as many emotional needs, if in some ways more, if not more, than the rest of us. So they can be pulled back in just like anybody else can. Interesting news. All right. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. Now, there was some really fun and interesting stuff posted while you were away. And I thought we might kind of talk about all of it together as a thing, because every one of them is just so much that I can't, and this was Val Ross and all of the contributions she made kind of out of nowhere. I was like, who's this person? And suddenly...
Yeah, I've been talking to Valerie Ross for years and years, and she's been very helpful to me behind the scenes with legal documents and that kind of thing. And kind of out of the blue, a few weeks ago, she sent me something about her parents. And it was touching. I thought other ex-Scientologists would feel really a kinship to it, that they would probably have went through something in their lives. The only issue I had with it was it was kind of it needed more background on who she was in her career in Scientology. So I asked her, I said, can you add just a few paragraphs about overall what your career was? It'll give this piece a little more context. So she sends me back a rewrite. And, oh, by the way, I spied on the FBI for the Guardian's office. I'm like, what?
Right.
So we put out that first piece, and a little while later, she said, I know people are asking me about this and that, and I just thought, one thing is, how does somebody get sucked into Scientology? So she gave me a piece on that, and then once she did that, how did she get sucked in to going to spy training before going to the FBI? So she's just been sending me these pieces. I think they're wonderful. People are responding. They love the way she writes. We did a podcast together. I'm just sorry that I didn't encourage her to write her experiences earlier, but they're wonderful. I think she's got more coming. And, the most recent one about getting ready to become a Guardian's office spy and what that was like while trying to do all these other things in Scientology. And I don't know, it's such a fresh perspective on that. We just haven't really heard that particular experience before. And I don't know, I just love the way she writes. So I'm really glad she's been giving me these pieces for the bunker.
Yeah, they've been great, and such a window into these histories. People don't understand the kind of rich vein of history that is the Church of Scientology. There's 50, 70 years of this, in every decade of its existence. If you're into this stuff, there's so much to either learn or see or just know about in all the little details of all this. And it's one of the rare cases, I just want to point this out to people, this is a rare case in the world where you get to have a bird's eye view to what a cult leader did from the beginning all the way through till he died. There's so much documentation, and every time a new voice is added like Val's, you get a whole nother fresh perspective on it, and you go, oh my God, here's a whole nother thing, right? That makes the whole Guardian's office and Office of Special Affairs and the Operation Snow White and the sort of clandestine spy operation that the Church of Scientology engages in. It's not a joke. They really do it. And they've even trained their people.
One of the things that surprised me a lot was we knew that Mary Sue Hubbard, of course, L. Ron Hubbard's wife, was overseeing all this spying. Yep. But I'm not sure it was well known that Val personally was getting instructions from Diana Hubbard.
Hmm.
And I don't remember seeing Diana's, when I wrote my book about Paulette Cooper, I really dove in deep to all the FBI records about the Guardian's office and everything. And I don't remember seeing Diana's name in there. Maybe I'm misremembering, but she certainly wasn't indicted or named an unindicted co-conspirator or anything.
Mm-mm.
So that was very interesting to me that not only was Hubbard's wife running everything, but his daughter was also part of it. And we all know that Hubbard himself was involved, but he was only an unindicted co-conspirator and all that. But Diana Hubbard, man, she was doing some of the spy management as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a inner circle activity, right? And you want to keep it in the family. That's pretty typical even for cults, where you just kind of, it's the loyalty factor, it's the trust factor, it's all of that. And because I know in the 70s, Diana was mainly involved with overseeing and running the Mission Network, and that was her main gig. But that merged kind of in a financial and other way with the whole Snow White blow up when the FBI raid happened, because the mission funds were where they were getting their legal money from for the court cases. And when that all blew up, suddenly that money coming in from the missions wasn't enough. And things went from bad to worse for all of them. Anyway.
She's the last member of the Hubbard family still in the church. She's in the Sea Org. She's based at Int Base. They bring her out every year or two to show up at an event. I think Dave just thinks of her as a good way to make the donors happy. They get to meet her and shake her hand at St. Hill.
That's right.
But otherwise, they keep her at Int Base.
That's right. Yeah, she's not Miscavige inner circle. She's kind of outer layer,
She was washing his clothes, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. As he does with his people up there. All of them have had the brunt of that. Even a Hubbard. He just doesn't care, right?
Well, it's a power move.
That's right. It's total power. It's total domination. Okay, speaking of inner circles, Shelley Miscavige. Now, you posted a story that basically showed that she had been up at Pretoria, but then maybe this is not a current situation. What's the...
Yeah, Petrolia.
Petrolia, that's it, Petrolia.
Yeah, I've been writing about Shelley's situation for more than 10 years, and the multiple lines of evidence put her at this small mountain compound near Lake Arrowhead. There's public records on that. But out of the blue, there was this anonymous posting on Reddit showing that she had registered to vote at the Petrolia Vault location up in very far north California in 2017. Now, it took me a while, but I finally managed to independently confirm that she is currently registered to vote there. I didn't want to just rely on an anonymous post on Reddit. She is currently registered to vote in Petrolia, California, but she has not actually voted since the 90s. So I've talked to my sources about this. We've looked into some things. I would just suggest that it may be likely that she still is at Twin Peaks, that compound in the San Bernardino Mountains near Lake Arrowhead, where she's basically been kept since 2005. But that at some point she went up to the Petrolia Vault location. And the reason why I had never looked there is there's just nothing there. There's maybe two people for this massive piece of land with nothing on it. There'd be nothing for her to do up there. At the Twin Peaks location, there's several buildings. They do the work there of preserving L. Ron Hubbard's archives. There's 12 or 15 people working there. She could be part of a group. Petrolia, there's nothing, but apparently they moved her up there at least temporarily. And what may have happened is she may have renewed her driver's license while she was up there, automatically registering to vote, but she didn't actually vote.
Right.
So I think she's may be back at Twin Peaks because that just is where they have the most people that can keep an eye on her and she can actually do some work, and that she may have been at Petrolia only temporarily. But I do have a reader who kind of specializes in investigating that little branch of Scientology, which is called the Church of Spiritual Technology, CST. And he's written in the past for us about CST property records, personnel records, really fascinating stuff he turns up. And so he gave me a rundown on what records there are about that Petrolia location. And so we got a little more information about who might be up there, who's been working up there, who might have been with Shelley. But again, I think it's more likely she's back at Twin Peaks, but I don't have any hard evidence of that. I'm going to keep looking.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Well, I definitely for years now have gone to you as the source on where's Shelley, right? So, because I just don't think anybody's keeping as close tabs on this whole thing as you have been for so long, and it's, and so I think you're right. It's interesting how we talk about, I've dropped, many times how, Scientology will send some Sea Org member out to Australia or something to make them, to disappear them, because that's where you go as a regular old Sea Org member. But I'll tell you, if you have certain clearances, there is nowhere you could go in the Scientology verse, so to speak, that is more remote and harder to find, and that you are going to be more thoroughly disappeared than these CST properties. They are out in the middle of literally nowhere. And you could be out there for the rest of your life and no one would have a clue where you were if it wasn't for some kind of public record.
And even the top people around Miscavige never go to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I was blown away to find out that Bruce Hines had actually been to the Twin Peaks compound, and he wrote something about that for me. Mm-hmm. There's so few people that have actually ever been to a CST location. So that's just, you're right. It's just, they're very good at keeping very quiet about those places.
They really are, impressively so. But we know a lot about it anyway, and that's, that's Scientology. So then finally, I thought, now that you're back and we're going to be getting back into the groove of things legally, we were due for a legal update because we have Leah's case, we have the JD case with Gavin Potter. We still have Valerie Haney's arbitration thing and those Florida case. Yeah?
Yeah, the next thing to look for is going to be the Bixler lawsuit, which is the one filed against Danny Masterson and the Church of Scientology by Danny's victims.
Right.
They have asked to add a new complaint that adds a victim and also adds racketeering charges. That's coming up, I believe, on March 20th. So that's just in a couple weeks, and that's a big one. Mm-hmm. And then the week after that, the Jane Doe 1 lawsuit against David Miscavige and Gavin Potter is going to face the arbitration motion from Scientology.
Okay.
That's big. So those are really the big things coming in March. I'm not sure. I think Leah's case is going to be a little quieter for a while. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm keeping an eye on all of them. Yeah, with the Tampa thing, who knows when the 11th Circuit's going to rule on that interlocutory appeal? I mean, they work on their own schedule, and it's just, I check every day, but it's just one of these days, boom. The other thing that's going on, I'm trying to get some information on, is in Danny Masterson's criminal appeal. Remember, his new appeal attorneys had tried to get him released from custody while he's appealing, and Judge Olmedo wasn't going for that.
Nope.
But so now what they need to do is they need to put together this appeal to convince an appellate court that Judge Olmedo messed up. And so in order to do that, they have to have the full court record, which there is a note in the docket that has been done. Supposedly, Judge Olmedo's court has turned over everything to the appeals court. But now Danny's attorneys are saying, no, there's some stuff missing here. And they have asked that for everything to be put on hold until that can be resolved. I'm trying to get some more information on what it is they claim is missing. The guy that I usually talk to at the appeals court has not gotten back to me, but hopefully this week maybe I'll hear something. So might just be a minor glitch, but it's always, when it's Danny, it's always interesting to find out what's going on.
Yeah, big time. All right. Well, thank you for all of those updates on where things are at now. And in a couple of weeks, we'll hear more about these Jane Doe cases and go forward from there. All right. Well, Tony, thanks again. Welcome back. Thanks for all the updates. And any sort of hint of anything coming this next week?
I tell you what, I'm working hard on a couple of big pieces that I'm sorry won't pay off for a while yet. I'm digging through documents and talking to people, but really good stuff coming that I'm very excited about. So
Awesome.
I'll tell you when I can.
Okay, good. Well, we always like the big pieces. Those are always so cool. All right, folks out there, if you are not subscribed to Tony's Substack, the address is right there on the screen. Get to it. And of course, subscribe to this channel and like, share, and do all the things. And with that, we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.